Welcome to Creepytalks, where hidden fears come alive through chilling horror tales. Dare to listen as every story pulls you deeper into the darkness. Story 1, The Encounter. I still remember the night like it happened yesterday, the night that shattered my sense of reality and left a shadow lingering over everything I thought I knew about myself. It began innocently enough, or at least that's what I keep telling myself, clinging to the illusion of normalcy. I was scrolling aimlessly through an app I'd installed months ago, the kind of app that promises companionship without attachments, excitement without consequences. It was late, too late, I now realize, and I wasn't in the mood to be sensible. That's when I saw her profile. Evelyn, 28, thrill seeker, open-minded, adventure awaits. Something about her smile caught me. It wasn't the usual filtered grin that people post online. It had depth. And maybe that was my first mistake, assuming depth in a stranger's smile. I messaged her. She responded within minutes, her words casual but oddly magnetic. We talked for hours that night. At first it was small talk, the usual, "Where are you from?" and "What do you do?" But soon the conversation twisted into something darker, more personal, more intimate than I intended. She asked questions that pried open parts of my mind I had long buried. "You ever feel like you're being watched even when no one's there?" she typed at one point. I laughed nervously. "All the time. Probably just paranoia." "Maybe," she replied. "Or maybe something wants you to notice." I should have stopped there. I should have ignored her and shut my phone off. But something about her tone, so casual, so unbothered, made me curious. And I've always had a dangerous streak of curiosity. By the next evening, we had agreed to meet. She suggested a bar in the quieter part of the city, the kind of place with dim lighting and shadows that seem to linger longer than they should. The kind of place where secrets feel safe, and yet nothing is safe at all. I arrived early. The bar was nearly empty, just a few late-night wanderers nursing their drinks. And then I saw her, Evelyn. She was leaning against the far wall, a glass of wine in her hand, her eyes scanning the room with a predator's grace. She smiled when she saw me. A slow, knowing smile that made the hair on my neck stand on end. "Hi," she said, her voice smooth like silk over steel. "Hi," I replied, suddenly feeling awkward. We talked for a while. Small talk at first, but the tension in the air was undeniable. Every glance she threw my way felt calculated, like she was reading not just my words, but my thoughts. And I had the sinking realization that she probably was. Then she leaned closer, her voice dropping to a whisper that only I could hear. "You know, I don't usually do this, but there's something about you, something that makes me want to play a little game." I laughed, unsure whether she was joking. "A game?" "Yes," she said, her lips curling into a faint, unsettling smile. "A game. But be careful. Not all games are meant to be won." That should have been my second warning, my second chance to turn around and walk out. But instead, I found myself agreeing to meet her again, this time somewhere more private. The next part of our encounter was even stranger. She didn't suggest a hotel or an apartment. She suggested a walk through the old part of the city, the streets I hadn't visited in years, alleys I had always avoided. As we walked, the air grew colder, though it was still summer. Shadows stretched unnaturally along the cracked pavement, and the flickering streetlights did little to dispel the darkness. "You like fear, don't you?" she asked suddenly. I swallowed hard. "I guess, not really." Her eyes glinted. "It's not about liking it. It's about surviving it. Surviving fear is the most intoxicating thrill." I didn't know whether to feel excited or terrified, maybe both. That's when the first weird thing happened. A man, or what I thought was a man, stood at the end of the alley. He was tall, wearing a dark coat, face hidden in shadows. He didn't move, didn't blink, just stared. "Do you see him?" Evelyn asked. "Yes," I said, my voice trembling slightly. "Good," she whispered. "Now don't look away, not even for a second." I tried to follow her gaze, but the longer I stared, the more the figure seemed wrong. His proportions were slightly off, limbs too long, torso twisted at angles that felt unnatural. My skin crawled, but when I blinked, and I couldn't help it for more than a second, the figure was gone. "Did you see it disappear?" she asked casually, as if this were a normal thing. I nodded, though my heart was hammering. "Most people don't notice it at first," she said, "but some of us are sensitive. We see what's really there." I laughed nervously. "Sensitive to what?" "To the things that want to follow you home," she said, her smile now almost predatory. "And I think something wants you?" That night, she invited me to her apartment. Or rather, she didn't invite me. She led me there, as if I had no choice but to follow. Her building was old, the kind with creaking floors and hallways that smelled faintly of mildew and something metallic I couldn't place. Inside her apartment, the air was thick, heavy, almost tangible. Candles flickered, casting long, dancing shadows on the walls. The furniture was sparse, minimal, but everything seemed intentionally placed. And then I saw it, a mirror standing taller than I was, but positioned at a strange angle, reflecting the room, and yet something beyond the room. "What's that?" I asked. Evelyn tilted her head, her eyes darkening. "A window," she said. "A window into the parts of yourself you try to ignore." I laughed, but the sound caught in my throat. The mirror's surface rippled slightly like water, and for a fraction of a second, I thought I saw my reflection smile. And it wasn't my smile. She noticed my hesitation and moved closer. "Don't be afraid. Not yet." I should have left. I should have run. But I didn't. Curiosity and something darker, something magnetic, kept me rooted. We talked for hours. She didn't touch me, didn't make any sudden moves, but her presence was suffocating, intoxicating, and I could feel my mind bending under the weight of it. Every question she asked seemed innocuous at first, but each one forced me to confront memories I had long buried, secrets I had never admitted to anyone. By the time I left her apartment that night, it was nearly dawn. The streets outside were empty, silent, and the city felt alien. I walked home in a daze, my body exhausted, my mind buzzing with fear, and something else I didn't want to name. And that's when the dreams began. I dreamt of her apartment, but it wasn't the same. The walls were warped, the mirror bigger, stretching infinitely. I could see shadows moving behind it, shapes that had no right to exist. Every time I tried to look away, the shadows turned toward me, and then I would wake up, heart racing, only to feel the faintest trace of her perfume in my room. I started noticing other things too. At work, in the grocery store, even at home, I would catch glimpses of figures in the corner of my vision. Long, twisted shapes that disappeared when I looked directly at them. Whispers followed me at night, faint but insistent, repeating words I couldn't quite understand. Words that made my blood run cold. I wanted to tell someone. I wanted to scream, but I knew no one would believe me. Who would believe that a simple date could open a door to something else? Something that wasn't supposed to exist in this world? And then one night, I received a message from her. Simple. 2 words. "I'm watching." I didn't know whether to be terrified or exhilarated. Maybe both. I didn't know that my life had just crossed a line that could never be uncrossed. That the date, the encounter, the curiosity, it had been the bait, and I had bitten. The true horror hadn't begun yet, not even close. Story 2. The Shadows Follow. The message from her, "I'm watching," sat on my phone like a pulse of ice, freezing every nerve in my body. I stared at it for minutes, unable to move, unable to breathe properly. My logical mind screamed that it was a prank, that someone had intercepted my number. But deep down, an instinctive dread gnawed at me, whispering that I had just opened a door, and whatever was on the other side was already inside my life. That night I didn't sleep. I sat in the darkness of my apartment, phone in hand, scanning every corner of the room, waiting for a shadow to detach itself from the walls. But there was nothing, at least nothing visible. The next day I tried to distract myself, work, errands, anything to push her out of my mind. But it was impossible. Every mirror I passed, every reflective surface made me flinch. For a fleeting second, I thought I saw her there, standing just behind me, smiling. My reflection didn't move at all, yet the feeling lingered, as if the air itself had been altered, tainted by her presence. I considered calling her, to demand answers, to confront her, but the fear of what that might invite into my life kept my fingers frozen over the screen. And besides, deep down, I knew that the real danger wasn't her. It was what she brought with her. The first stalking. It started with small things. At first, I convinced myself they were coincidences, a fleeting shadow in the corner of my vision, a door closing by itself, my phone buzzing with notifications, only to reveal blank messages. Then I noticed him, a man, or rather, something that resembled a man, began appearing at the edges of my life, always at a distance, sometimes just across the street, sometimes standing silently behind a store window. His figure was impossible to ignore once noticed. Too tall, limbs oddly angled, and face obscured by darkness. He didn't move like a normal human. Every step seemed almost gliding, silent, deliberate. At first, I tried to rationalize. He's just a late-night wanderer, I told myself. But logic faltered when he appeared at multiple locations at once, always at the periphery of my awareness. No one else noticed him. When I blinked, he vanished, but the gnawing certainty that he had been there remained. I called a friend for advice, half expecting ridicule. "I think someone's following me," I said, voice shaking. "You're stressed, man," he laughed. "Maybe lay off the late-night dates, huh?" I didn't tell him about Evelyn, about the shadows, about the mirror. How could I? Even I wasn't sure what was real anymore. Dreams turned real. Sleep became a battlefield. Every night the dreams grew darker, more tangible, as if they were bleeding into reality. I would find myself back in her apartment, though the layout had shifted. Hallways stretched into impossible angles, ceilings arched high into darkness, and the mirror loomed larger, more menacing. The shadows behind it moved with purpose. They whispered my name, sometimes softly, sometimes shrieking in voices that weren't human. And always Evelyn was there, smiling, watching, urging me forward, always just out of reach. One night I woke up to a sound that wasn't in the dream, a soft tap on my window. Heart hammering, I approached slowly, and for a moment I could see her silhouette outside, motionless, almost floating in the faint glow of the streetlight. I blinked and she was gone. Only the lingering scent of her perfume remained. I didn't leave my apartment for days. I stopped answering calls. I stopped leaving the lights off. But the whispers continued. growing louder, more insistent, carrying a rhythm I couldn't place. It was almost like they were summoning me. The mirror's call. By the end of the week, I could no longer ignore the pull of the mirror in her apartment, or rather, the mirror in my dreams that had now seeped into reality. My reflection began acting independently, subtle at first, a twitch of a smile when I hadn't smiled, a glance to the side when I was staring straight ahead, then more overt. One evening I watched my reflection reach for me while my real hands remained still. Panic consumed me. I tried covering every reflective surface in my apartment, mirrors, glass doors, even polished metal, but it didn't matter. Every night I found her again in the mirror, beckoning, grinning wider, and sometimes mimicking my worst memories, replaying them back at me like a film I couldn't pause or turn off. I started hearing her voice outside of dreams. At first it was a whisper through the walls. "You shouldn't have followed me." Then it grew louder, almost chanting, "Come back! Come back! Don't fight it!" I wanted to run, but the city felt different now, alien. Streets twisted unnaturally, alleys lengthened beyond reason, and the man or thing still watched. Always, always following. A dangerous curiosity. I realized I was addicted to the terror. Every glimpse of her in the shadows, every whispered call through the air, every flicker of the mirror's surface pulled me closer. I told myself I needed to understand, that I could confront her and reclaim control. I went back to the bar where we first met, hoping for answers, maybe even closure. But the bar was gone. The building had been replaced with a steel and glass office tower, as if the street had erased itself from memory. My phone, my GPS, even online maps no longer acknowledged its existence. I asked a stranger walking by, "Excuse me, was there a bar here?" They looked at me like I had grown horns overnight. What bar? I realized then that this wasn't just about Evelyn. This was bigger. The city itself had become a labyrinth, bending reality around her, around me, around the things that had followed me home. The first confrontation. Finally, I couldn't take it anymore. I had to see her. I had to face the mirror. I went to the only place I could think of, the apartment building where she lived. My hands shook as I pushed open the door to the lobby. It was empty, silent. The air smelled of decay and candle smoke. I ran up the stairs 3 at a time, each creak underfoot echoing unnaturally. When I reached her apartment, the door was open. Inside, the space was warped beyond recognition. Walls twisted like they were melting. The mirror stood in the center, impossibly tall, stretching to the ceiling. And she was there, her eyes blacker than before, a smile that no human should be capable of holding. "You came," she said softly. "I was beginning to think you wouldn't." I tried to speak, but my voice failed. My mind raced, desperate for logic, for reason. "You've seen the shadows," she continued, stepping closer, gliding rather than walking. "And now, you belong to them. But don't worry, it's not permanent. At least, not yet." "Belong to them?" I managed finally. "Fear has a way of claiming people," she said. "And you were too curious. That curiosity, it's delicious." The mirror rippled. From its surface, shadows emerged, twisting and writhing, forming shapes I couldn't comprehend. They reached for me, but she stopped them with a gesture, smiling like a conductor of some dark orchestra. "You could leave," she said softly, "but the shadows, they follow curiosity, and you're insatiable." The air became heavy, pressing against my chest. I realized then that no matter what I did, no matter where I ran, the city, the shadows, Evelyn, They were all pieces of a trap I had walked into willingly, and yet I couldn't turn away. I was already lost. Story 3, The Descent. I didn't sleep that night. How could I? My apartment felt alien, as if the walls themselves were listening, waiting. Every reflective surface caught my eye, my own reflection mocking me, twisting in ways I couldn't comprehend. My mind was fraying, my nerves taut as wires ready to snap. The shadows followed me home. I knew it. I didn't see them at first. I felt them. A pressure in my chest, a whisper at the edge of hearing, a ripple of cold air passing over my skin. Every time I glanced at a window or mirror, I saw movement. Something too fast, too twisted, too human and yet grotesquely inhuman. I tried to ignore it. I locked doors, shut windows, covered mirrors with sheets, but it didn't matter. That night, the first direct confrontation began. The shadows break in. I was in the kitchen trying to pour myself a glass of water when I heard it, a soft scrape at the living room window. My heart jumped, but when I looked, nothing was there. Just the moonlight casting silver patterns across the floor. And then I saw it, a shadow stretching across the wall, darker than darkness itself, moving independently of any light source. It pooled at the edge of the room, coalescing, forming the unmistakable shape of a man, but wrong. Limbs too long, head too narrow, shoulders bending at impossible angles. The thing stared at me, and I knew somehow that it wasn't just observing, it was calculating, choosing. Before I could react, a dozen more shadows emerged from the walls themselves, sliding along surfaces like liquid. They surrounded me, filling the apartment with their silent, suffocating presence. I could hear whispers now, layered over each other, calling my name, asking questions I didn't want to answer, promising things I didn't want to imagine. And then I heard her voice, Evelyn's voice, soft and caressing, cutting through the chaos like a knife. You wanted to see. You wanted to know. Now, you belong. I tried to run, but the shadows didn't let me. They pressed against me, tugged at my limbs, their touch icy and burning at the same time. I screamed, but no sound came out. My lungs burned, my body shook, but still they held me fast. Reality fractures. Somehow I woke up, or I thought I woke up, in my bed, drenched in sweat. The room looked normal. My apartment looked normal. Sunlight streamed through the blinds. My rational mind screamed relief, until I looked at the mirror. My reflection wasn't me, not fully. The eyes were too black, the smile too wide, and behind me in the reflection, I saw her, Evelyn, standing in the corner, watching, smiling. I spun around. Empty room. I turned back to the mirror. She had moved closer. Panic clawed at my mind. I realized then that I wasn't awake. Not truly. Every reflection, every shadow, every corner of the city was under her influence. She wasn't just a person. She was the gatekeeper of something far older, far darker than I could have imagined. And worse, she wanted me to see it, trapped in the city. The next day, I tried to leave the city, hoping that distance might break the connection, might free me. But the streets refused to follow logic. Roads twisted impossibly, alleys led to nowhere. Buildings rearranged themselves when I looked away. Maps were useless. My phone refused to work. Even my car seemed to hesitate at intersections, almost sentient, like the city itself was alive and unwilling to let me escape. And then I saw him again, the tall figure, the first shadow that had stalked me. But now there were more, dozens. They walked like people, moved like people, but their presence was wrong, their motions fluid and alien. Wherever I went, they were there, silent, observing, waiting. I realized then the terrible truth. Evelyn hadn't just brought me into her world. She had brought the world into me. And now there was no escape. The game revealed. I found myself wandering, exhausted, hungry, desperate for clarity. And then I saw her, Evelyn, standing in the middle of an empty street, her eyes black, her grin impossibly wide. "You've lasted longer than most," she said, "but you can't run from me. You can't hide from yourself. And the shadows, they won't let you." "I don't understand," I whispered, my voice cracking. "What is this? Why me?" She laughed softly. It was a sound that pierced my mind, echoing in the empty streets. Curiosity, desire, fear, it all matters. You wanted to play. You wanted to explore. Now you're part of the game, and the game never ends. I tried to grab her, to confront her, but my hands passed through her as if she were made of smoke. She tilted her head, eyes glinting. The city bends for me. Shadows obey me. Fear fuels me. And you feed it willingly. I realized then that she wasn't just a person. She was a catalyst, a lure for the shadows. And I had walked straight into her trap. The first loss. By nightfall, I couldn't tell what was real and what wasn't. I was wandering aimlessly, chased by shadows, drawn to reflections, haunted by whispers. And then I saw it, my apartment. Or what should have been my apartment. The door stood open. Inside, the mirror stretched impossibly, reflecting not my room, but a twisted landscape, a nightmare version of my city filled with shadows and screams. And on the floor, something moved, something human, or once human. I staggered forward. The shadows around me recoiled, hissing softly. I realized it was me, or what remained of me, my own reflection, broken, twisted, whispering my fears back at me. And next to it, her silhouette. Evelyn smiling, hands clasped as if applauding. "You can't leave now," she said. "The shadows have claimed you. The city has claimed you. But don't worry. There's always time to play more." I screamed, and the shadows laughed. The endless night. Now I wander. I don't sleep. I don't eat properly. The city is no longer a city. It is a maze, a living nightmare designed to keep me in fear, to keep me under her control. Mirrors call to me, shadows stalk me, whispers follow me. Every street, every building, every reflection bends reality, feeding my terror. And sometimes, just sometimes, I see her in the distance, watching, smiling. "You're mine," she whispers through the wind, and I have no choice but to obey. Story 4. The Labyrinth of Fear. I no longer know what is real. I no longer know what is mine. The city has claimed me. The shadows have claimed me. And most terrifying of all, Evelyn has claimed me. I wander the streets endlessly, a marionette pulled by invisible strings. Buildings twist in impossible ways. Streets fold into themselves. Alleys stretch into infinity. Every corner I turn, the air feels heavier, denser, charged with anticipation, as if the city itself waits for me to falter. Mirrors call to me. Reflections that are not my own flash across windows, pools of water, even the polished metal of a mailbox. I see my face, yes, but twisted, haunted, screaming silently, eyes black and wide with terror. And behind me always, she is there, Evelyn, watching, smiling, whispering, the message in shadows. I stopped counting days ago. Time has no meaning here. Only fear has meaning. Only survival. One night, or what I think was night, I sat in an abandoned square, breathing heavily, trying to calm my shaking hands. And then I saw it, the shadows forming words, black tendrils crawling along walls and pavement, twisting into letters. "Come to the mirror. Your truth awaits. I wanted to ignore it. I wanted to run. But curiosity, terrible, irresistible curiosity, pulled me forward. Every instinct screamed that I was walking into death. And yet I went. The mirror was there, larger than before, framed by shadows that squirmed like living creatures. It reflected the city and my city, but twisted, nightmarish, flooded with screaming faces, each trapped behind their own glass prison. And she stood before it, arms outstretched, her eyes shining with a black light that hurt to look at. "You wanted answers," she said. "Here they are." I swallowed, terrified. What? What is this place? Why me? "You asked to see the shadows," she said. "You asked to play. Fear is a gift, and you are a perfect vessel." The mirror rippled. My reflection stepped out, fully formed, but wrong, limbs too long, fingers clawed, eyes hollow. It smiled at me. "Meet yourself," she whispered, facing the reflection. I froze. My reflection moved independently, circling me, mimicking my gestures a fraction of a second late. I tried to speak. My voice shook. What do you want from me?" The reflection tilted its head, a grotesque echo of my own curiosity. "You are afraid. You are alone. You are nothing without her." Evelyn laughed softly, and the sound echoed across the twisted city. Shadows slithered around my reflection, wrapping around it like living chains. "You see," she said, "fear is power, and you are powerless. But that's okay. You'll learn." I lunged at the mirror, desperate, slamming my fists against its cold, impossible surface. My hands passed through it, and then I felt it, the pull, a suction dragging me forward into the glass. I screamed, the mirror world. I woke, or I thought I woke, inside the mirror. The world was inverted, colors muted, shadows alive in ways that defied physics. The streets moved beneath my feet, writhing like black snakes. Buildings stretched impossibly high, leaning inward as if trying to crush me. The air tasted of metal and ash. And she was there, Evelyn, taller now, more ethereal, a creature of shadow and beauty. Her smile was infinite. "Welcome," she said. "This is the heart of the game. The city, the shadows, the reflections, they are all mine. And now, you are mine too." I tried to run. The streets bent, folding into themselves. Alleys became endless corridors of darkness. Shadows reached from every surface, fingers long and clawed, dragging at my legs. I could hear whispers chanting my name, promising pain, promising oblivion. And through it all, Evelyn moved effortlessly, untouched by the chaos. She was calm, omnipotent, and terrifyingly human in her movements. The trap tightens. Days, if they were days, passed. I lost track of time entirely. My body ached. Hunger gnawed at me, yet food seemed impossible to find. Sleep? Only in brief moments, where nightmares overtook reality entirely. The mirror world was unrelenting. Shadows constantly pressed against me, mocking, whispering, reminding me of my failures, my weaknesses. I tried to fight them. I tried to scream, to destroy, to break the city apart. But every act of resistance only strengthened the pull, only made the shadows more aware, more cruel. And Evelyn, she watched, always watching. Her whispers filled my mind. Curiosity is delicious. Fear is sustenance. Pain is education. And you are learning very quickly. I realized then that the horror wasn't just physical, it was psychological. Evelyn fed on fear, yes, but more than that, she thrived on the unraveling of the mind. Every moment, every thought, every blink of panic strengthened her dominion. The first escape attempt. One flicker of hope came when I stumbled across a street I thought I recognized, an alley that looked like it existed in the real city. I ran, sprinted blindly, dodging shadows and twisted reflections. I thought maybe, just maybe, I could escape. But she appeared, Evelyn standing at the end of the alley, impossibly close. Her eyes burned like coals. Shadows radiated from her in waves, pushing me back. "You think you can leave?" she asked softly. "This isn't a place you can leave. Not until you understand." I tried to pass her. My legs moved, but the shadows coalesced into chains around my ankles, dragging me back. I screamed. "You belong to the game," she said, "and the game never ends." I fell to my knees, tears streaking my face. My mind was unraveling. The mirror world laughed at me. Shadows danced around, whispering my fears back to me, louder and louder, until I could feel my own sanity slipping through my fingers like water. A glimpse of reality. In a rare, horrifying moment, I caught a glimpse of what might have been the real world, a sliver of sunlight through a warped window, a familiar street sign. It lasted only a heartbeat before everything warped back into darkness, the shadows pressing closer, the mirror world closing in. I realized something then. Escape might be impossible. Not because Evelyn was invincible, but because the trap wasn't physical, it was psychological. She had infiltrated my mind, my fear, my very perception of reality. I was hers as long as I was afraid, as long as I craved answers, as long as curiosity drove me forward. In curiosity, I had plenty of that, the horrifying truth. Evelyn stepped closer, her smile infinite, her shadow stretching across the city like a storm cloud. "You wanted the truth," she said softly. "Here it is. The shadows are real. They are old, older than cities, older than men. They follow desire, feed on fear. And I am their queen, their anchor in the world of mortals. You invited them by seeking what you were not meant to see." I tried to speak. My voice failed. "They will never let you go," she continued. "Not unless you stop wanting, not unless you stop fearing. And you cannot do that." I realized then the true horror. This wasn't just about being trapped. This wasn't just about fear. It was about eternity. She wasn't killing me. She was claiming me, bending me, rewriting me into a part of her game. And I knew with every ounce of my being that I had already lost. The endless nightmare. Now I wander, I run, I hide, I scream. But the city bends, the shadows follow, and Evelyn watches, smiling. Every mirror, every reflection, every darkened corner is a reminder. There is no escape. Sometimes I catch glimpses of other people, trapped like me. Their faces are twisted, empty, echoes of curiosity that led them here. I want to warn them, to help them, but the shadows prevent me. And even if I could, would they listen? Or would they, like me, be drawn forward by curiosity, by desire, by the promise of understanding? I don't know. All I know is this: the game continues. The shadows grow stronger. Evelyn smiles, and I am trapped. Story 5, The Edge of Sanity. I no longer recognize myself or the world around me. The city, if it can still be called that, pulses like a living organism, twisting and reshaping itself with every fearful thought that crosses my mind. Shadows slither across streets that weren't there a moment ago. Buildings bend over me, suffocating, groaning, and the sky. The sky is wrong. It's black with streaks of crimson, like a wound that never heals. And she, Evelyn, moves through it all effortlessly, a predator in a realm designed to trap prey. Every time I think I might find a moment of respite, she appears, grinning, silent, impossibly close. I don't sleep. I don't eat. I barely breathe. I move because I have no choice. The shadows will catch me if I stop. The mirror's invitation. One flicker of hope, or what I thought was hope, appeared when I saw a light unlike any I'd seen before. It came from a mirror, hanging in the middle of a twisted alley that didn't exist yesterday. The glass shimmered, and inside it, a vision of my old apartment, my real apartment, untouched by this nightmare, sunlight streaming through the blinds. For a heartbeat, I allowed myself to hope. Maybe this was a way out. Maybe I could escape the labyrinth. And then she appeared. Evelyn stepped through the shadows like water, graceful, terrifying. Her eyes burned like embers, and she smiled wider than ever before. "You think that's escape?" she whispered, circling me like a shark. "This world bends for me. The mirror only shows what I allow, and I allow you to see, but not leave." The glass flickered. My apartment seemed to call to me, beckoning, promising safety. But I knew it was a trap. Every instinct screamed that stepping through it would mean I didn't even want to know. The shadows converge. I ran. I always run. Shadows stretched behind me, long, clawed, twisting, forming faces that screamed silently. They multiplied with every step, crawling from walls, ceilings, streets, even the pavement beneath my feet. They whispered in voices that were mine and not mine, repeating my worst thoughts, my deepest fears. "You belong here," they hissed. "You cannot leave. You cannot hide." I stumbled into a square I thought I recognized. The mirror stood at its center, taller than before, framed by writhing shadows. And she waited there, waiting, smiling, arms outstretched like a conductor, welcoming an orchestra of nightmares. "You've lasted longer than most," she said softly, almost tenderly. "But your fear, it's delicious, and I think it's time for the next lesson." I realized then that this wasn't just about me. This wasn't just about my curiosity. This was a game she played over and over, feeding on the same fear that kept me alive just long enough to make the next move. Confrontation in the mirror. I gathered what courage remained. I approached the mirror, the world around me trembling with anticipation. Shadows pressed close, clawed fingers brushing my skin, whispering promises of torment. "You can't beat me," Evelyn said, her voice echoing from every direction. "You can't fight what you cannot understand." I stared into the glass. My reflection stared back. Not me, not fully, but something worse. Something hollowed out, empty, a vessel for fear. "You see yourself," she whispered, "or at least what you will become. The shadows will consume you if you hesitate. But you have a choice. Curiosity is a path. Fear is the chains. Step through and learn the truth. Turn back and I will find you and I will break you entirely." I swallowed hard. My reflection reached out, fingers elongated, eyes black voids. I wanted to scream. I wanted to run. But something inside me wanted to know. The descent into madness. I stepped forward. The mirror swallowed me. I fell through an endless void, a tunnel of darkness flecked with blood-red light. Faces screamed past me, shadows clawing at the edges of my vision. I felt my mind stretch, bend, crack. Memories that weren't mine, fears that weren't mine, desires I never had, flooded my consciousness all at once. And then I landed. The mirror world had become something more. A city of screaming shadows, impossible angles, streets leading nowhere. But here I felt her power in full. The air hummed with it. Every shadow, every whisper, every distorted reflection was tethered to her. Evelyn stood at the center, taller, more radiant, terrifyingly beautiful. "You've come," she said softly, "and now you will see everything." The origin of shadows. She raised her hands and the shadows lifted, swirling around her like a storm. They shifted, forming shapes, figures, and then history. I saw cities burning, civilizations collapsing, people screaming, all bound by fear, all feeding the same force. You see now, she said, the shadows are older than humanity, older than time. They are desire and terror, curiosity and pain. I anchor them in your world, give them form, give them reason, and you are part of it now. I wanted to run. I wanted to escape, but my legs wouldn't obey. My mind screamed, but my body was paralyzed by the knowledge that there was no escape, not ever. You wanted to see the truth, she whispered. Now you will live it forever. The choice. She stepped closer, shadows bending around her like living smoke. You have a choice, she said. Step fully into the mirror, embrace the shadows, become one of us, or resist and be torn apart. Either way, you belong to the game. I staggered backward, my mind screaming for logic, for sanity, for some escape. But the city, the mirror, the shadows, they pressed in, relentless. I felt myself drawn forward, toward the glass, toward the unknown, toward her. And then a flicker of something, hope, perhaps defiance. I realized that if I gave in entirely, I would vanish, become another hollow reflection, another whisper among the shadows. I could not allow that. I lunged sideways, crashing into the edge of the mirror world. Shadows lashed at me, clawing, twisting, hissing my name. Pain exploded in my body, but I staggered forward, deeper into the city, seeking, what? Escape? Answers? Death? I don't know. The eternal game. I've learned something since then. This is not about winning. It's not about losing. It is about survival within a game I cannot comprehend, a game that reshapes itself every time I think I understand it. Evelyn is not human, not entirely. She is the bridge, the anchor, the predator of the shadows. And I am trapped. I walk, I run, I hide. Sometimes I think I see sunlight, but it is only reflection. Sometimes I hear voices, and I pray they are real. But one truth is clear. The game never ends. The shadows never rest. And Evelyn, she never sleeps. I am her prey, her student, her vessel. And the city will never let me go. Story 6, The Final Reflection. I no longer know what is real. The city, or whatever twisted version of it I inhabit now, pulses like a living organism, responsive to my fear, my thoughts, my slightest hesitation. The shadows are everywhere, under my skin and my eyes, whispering my name. They move when I blink and when I sleep, when I breathe, when I dare to think of escape. And she, Evelyn, she moves through it all like a conductor orchestrating the collapse of reality. I am not human anymore. Not fully, not entirely. My mind frays with each passing moment. My body remembers hunger, thirst, and exhaustion. But my soul belongs to the shadows now, the mirror's heart. It was inevitable that I would return to the mirror. I found it again, impossibly tall, suspended in the middle of an empty plaza that did not exist in the real world. The surface shimmered with an unnatural light, reflecting not the city around it, but an endless void of darkness and screaming faces. And she waited there, Evelyn, taller than ever, her eyes burning with black fire. Shadows swirled around her like a storm, forming shapes that twisted and reformed into visions of the past, present, and future. You've come far, she said softly, but far is not enough. You must decide. Decide? I croaked, my voice barely recognizable. Yes, she said, stepping closer. Step into the mirror fully, embrace the shadows, become part of me. or resist and be consumed entirely. The choice is yours. I looked into the glass. My reflection stared back. Not me, not fully, but a version of me hollowed out, warped, eyes black as midnight, fingers stretched into claws. Shadows writhed behind it like living serpents. I realized then, I had been learning this lesson since the very first night. Fear is power. Curiosity is weakness. In the shadows, they are patient, the flood of memory. I stepped closer, drawn despite myself. The mirror's surface rippled. Suddenly, I was no longer standing in the plaza. I was falling, or perhaps being pulled, into a void of infinite darkness. Memories. My memories. Her memories. Memories that were not mine, flooded my mind. I saw myself meeting her for the first time, saw the alley, the shadows at the edges of my vision, saw the first reflection in her apartment, saw the whispers, the impossibly long fingers, the city twisting around me. And then I saw others, people like me, trapped, screaming, clawing at mirrors that refused to release them, faces twisted in fear, eyes wide, pleading, empty. You see now, Evelyn's voice whispered inside my skull. This is not just your punishment. This is the lesson. You wanted to know. You wanted to see. Now you understand. The choice unravels. I realized the horrifying truth. The choice she offered was an illusion. Step through and I become a reflection, another anchor for the shadows, feeding them, feeding her. Resist, and the shadows will rip me apart anyway, piece by piece, mind by mind. But there was one thing she hadn't counted on. My curiosity, my terror, my desperation. It gave me clarity. Fear could not just consume me if I wielded it instead. I took a deep breath, or at least tried to. Shadows writhed around me, screeching. I could feel my own shadow trying to detach, to crawl into the mirror, to consume me. I reached into it, not with my hands but with my mind, forcing myself to control the chaos inside me. The shadows shrieked. Evelyn's smile faltered, just for a fraction of a second. "You," she hissed, "you dare!" I stepped fully into the mirror world, but not as prey, not as a reflection. I stepped as something else, something that refused to bend entirely. My mind reached into the void, into the chaos, and I took control of what I could. The shadows twisted, but I twisted with them, bending them around me, forming them into shapes I could manage, even for a moment. Evelyn stumbled backward, a rare vulnerability crossing her features. "You cannot," she whispered. "I don't need to," I said, my voice echoing unnaturally. "I only need to survive." The collapse, the plaza, the mirror, the entire world around me began to shudder. Shadows screamed. The mirror cracked, not like glass, but like reality itself tearing. The void roared, rippling with impossible geometry, impossible angles, screaming faces, and infinite reflections. Evelyn tried to stop me, her hands reaching out, fingers like black smoke. But I pushed forward, forcing the cracks to widen, pushing the void to collapse inward. I didn't know if I was destroying her, or the world, or myself, but I didn't care. And then, silence. The shadows fell. The mirror shattered, not physically, but in reality, in perception. The city snapped back, or perhaps forward, into something resembling normalcy. Buildings aligned, streets straightened, sunlight returned, though faint and flickering. And Evelyn, she was gone. Or at least, she appeared gone. The aftermath. I staggered into the streets I knew, or thought I knew. My apartment was there, my belongings intact. My reflection in the mirrors was me again, though faint shadows lingered at the edges of my vision. The city hummed with a strange quiet, as if it too were recovering from trauma. But I know the truth. I know that somewhere deep in the mirrors, deep in the shadows, Evelyn waits, patient, calculating, smiling. I am free for now, but freedom is temporary. Fear never truly leaves. Curiosity never dies. And the shadows, they are patient. I survive, but only because I've learned the most important lesson of all. You can run from monsters, you can survive shadows, but some games never end, and one day I will see her again. Story 7. The Shadows Linger. It's been weeks, or maybe months, since the mirror shattered, since the city returned, mostly to what I thought was normal. I walk the streets I once knew. My apartment feels like mine again. The sun filters through the blinds and the familiar noises of the city, traffic, footsteps, distant voices, should comfort me. And yet, they do not. Something is wrong. I can feel it. A subtle pull at the edges of reality, a whisper brushing the corner of my mind that wasn't there before. I avoid mirrors now. I cover reflective surfaces, pull blinds tight, but it's not enough. The shadows linger. The first signs. The first sign was subtle, a fleeting movement behind my reflection in the refrigerator door. A whisper in my apartment, so faint I could have imagined it. I told myself it was stress, paranoia, the natural aftermath of trauma. But the second sign was unmistakable. A shadow appeared at the end of my street, tall, angular, impossible. I froze. It didn't move, didn't blink. But I knew it had been waiting. And then I heard it, soft, teasing, familiar. Curiosity never dies. The voice belonged to her, Evelyn, not fully, not physically, but somewhere, watching, waiting, patient, the lingering fear. I try to ignore it. I tell myself I survived. I tell myself I'm free. But at night I hear the whispers again. Reflections twitch. Shadows stretch longer than they should. The mirror in the hallway, the one I never thought to discard, ripples softly when no one is near. I've begun to notice shapes moving just beyond my vision. A flash of black, a hint of movement, fingers reaching from darkness. I do not sleep as deeply anymore. My dreams are fragments of the mirror world, shards of shadow, glimpses of her smile, infinite and cruel. The final warning. And last night it happened. I woke to a soft tapping at my window. My heart jumped. I wanted to call it a coincidence. I wanted to tell myself it was the wind, but the tapping continued, deliberate, slow, measuring. I looked. No one was there. And then the message appeared, not on my phone this time, not in text, not in reflection, but written on the condensation of the glass itself, letters forming as if drawn by invisible fingers. We will meet again. I screamed. I know now that this is not over, that it never will be, that survival in the mirror world was only the beginning. Evelyn is patient, and the shadows are patient. They wait, they observe, they learn. And one day, curiosity will draw me back. And when it does, I will be hers again. Epilogue. I leave lights on at night. I avoid mirrors. I never go out after dark. I pretend the shadows do not exist, but they do. Every reflection, every fleeting movement, every whisper in the wind is a reminder that fear is eternal, curiosity is a trap, and some games never end. And somewhere, just beyond perception, Evelyn smiles, waiting. If this story sent chills down your spine, don't forget to subscribe to Creepytalks. Like this video, share it with your bravest friends, and watch till the end for more terrifying tales. Hit the bell icon so you never miss a nightmare. Enjoy more horror stories more darkness, and more fear. Because once you enter Creepy Talks, there's no going back.